Hello, everyone, and welcome to Genealogy Garage. I'm Julie Huffman, the genealogy librarian here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Genealogy Garage is the Los Angeles Public Library's free online program in which we present topics related to the world of genealogy. We are co-sponsored by the Southern California Genealogical Society and the Genealogical Society of Hispanic America, Southern California chapter. Genealogy Garage typically happens the third Saturday of each month, give or take a month or so. And I'm currently putting together next year's lineup. So if there's anything you want to hear about, shoot me an email right here. I never get that right, but my email is right there. So if you want to join the list, send me an email, tell me what you're interested in. And I also want to take this opportunity to let you know that the Los Angeles Public Library is about to begin subscribing to a brand new database, My China Roots. Let me bring this up. My China Roots is soon going to be appearing in our list of databases as a resource you can access from home if you have one of our library cards. It's a fabulous resource for those of you researching Chinese ancestry. Next May, we're going to have one of the representatives at a genealogy garage to tell us about all the bells and whistles that you can do for your Chinese genealogy research. So that'll be next May 2023. If you want to check out some of the features of My China Roots before we're up and running, go ahead and just go to this website. You can access some of the stuff without even being a member, and you can see the format and that sort of thing. So for today's session, we don't have a handout, but we will be posting some links in the chat box. And this session is being recorded and is going to be available to watch after the fact. So don't worry about taking too many notes or many notes. Don't worry about clicking on any links we might post right away, because you can always go back and rewatch it. Just remember that, so you don't have to panic or do anything right in the moment. Please type any questions you might have in the YouTube chat box, and I'll then ask the presenters the questions probably at the end of the presentations. So today we have not one, not two, but four presenters to talk about an institution that is near and dear to the hearts of all Southern Californians. That is the Huntington Library. One moment here. I'm going to bring up each one of them one at a time and introduce them. One sec, though. I'm kind of new at multi-presenter business. Okay. Let me get myself out of there. No, I think I have to stay in so you can hear me. Okay. Anne Blecksmith is Avery Associate Director of the Library and Head of the Reader Services Department at the Huntington. She holds an MLIS and an advanced degree in art history from the University of Bologna, Italy. She has worked as a librarian for a combined 20 years total, working in a mashup of reference, digitization, and public services at the Huntington, the Getty Research Institute, and she is also a substitute librarian at the Los Angeles Public Library, which is where I had the pleasure to meet Anne one Sunday. We were scheduled together at the history and genealogy desk. So that was fortuitous because that got this ball rolling. All right. Next, we have Clay Stalls. And Clay is the curator of California and Hispanic collections at the Huntington Library. He holds the MLIS as well as a PhD in medieval history from UCLA. Clay has had the privilege of serving as the president of the Society of California Archivists and has also served on the California Historical Records Advisory Board. He has published extensively on California and medieval Iberian history. So there's Clay. Welcome.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, let me bring up our next guest. Li Wei Yang is curator of Pacific Rim collections at the Huntington Library. His first Huntington exhibition, Y.C. Hong, Advocate for Chinese American Inclusion, was on view in 2015. In 2020, Li Wei was part of the Huntington Los Angeles Public Library and the Library Foundation of Los Angeles team that curated Stories and Voices from LA Chinatown, which was an outdoor exhibit located in LA Chinatown's Central Plaza and online. His next exhibition, which sounds really interesting, by the way, printed in 1085, will focus on the Huntington's oldest printed book and is scheduled to go on view in 2023. From 2008 to 2014, he held the positions of institutional archivist and project archivist at the Huntington. Li Wei served as a board member of the Society of California Archivists from 2015 to 2017. He received his MSc in history from the University of Edinburgh and from an MLIS from San Jose State University. Welcome, Li Wei.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have the wondrous Stephanie Arias. She is the Reference Services Manager in the Reader Services Department at the Huntington Library. She holds a BA in History from Cal Poly Pomona, and she enjoys finding ways to enhance library users' experiences, both remotely and in person. Thanks, Stephanie, for joining us with all your colleagues. I'm just going to bring everybody up to say we're ready to go. Welcome, esteemed guests, and thank you so much for joining us today to tell us about this jewel of an institution we're lucky to have right here in Southern California. So, Anne, why don't you start us off? I'm going to bring you up with your presentation.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Julie.
You are so welcome.
And we're...
just as a reminder, I'm sorry, Anne, I just want to remind everybody, as you think of a question, type it in that chat box, and I'm going to try to be on the ball and keep track of them. All right.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. We're thrilled to be here this morning at Genealogy Garage, and I'm so happy Julie invited us to this November program. My name's Anne Blecksmith, and I'm the Associate Director here and Head of Reader Services here at the Huntington. And myself and my wonderful colleagues are looking forward to continuing this program today. However, before we jump into all of the rich content, I thought I would provide some context about the library at the Huntington. So for these historical slides, I'm going to be intentionally showing you images of the Huntington as they're seen in our digital library, which you can find at hdl.huntington.org. So the Huntington Library, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens is a collections-based research and educational institution in San Marino, California. Founded by Henry and Arabella Huntington in 1919, the Huntington is home to 16 themed gardens, and our museum houses nearly 42,000 works of mostly American and European art from the 15th century to the recent past. Henry Huntington started his library by purchasing books and manuscripts with a focus on English-speaking people, spending record-breaking money in some cases to acquire collections en bloc that documented British and American histories. He also conscripted several librarians from the New York Public Library staff to accompany the collection to San Marino. In 1931, George Sherburne, a librarian and early Huntington Fellow, published a census of the 100 foundational collections acquired by Henry Huntington for the library in the Huntington Library Bulletin. So the Huntington Library now is one of the world's largest independent research libraries with more than 11 million items spanning the 11th to the 21st centuries. Every year, researchers from over 30 countries make over 20,000 research visits to the library's reading rooms, and thousands more remote researchers make use of the library's virtual services and digital collections. Some 75 library staff play a critical role in cultivating and expanding access to the collections, creating new opportunities for discovery and engagement. and ensuring that collections are preserved for the future. Since Henry Huntington's time, the collections have expanded to focus on 14 intersecting subject areas, concentrated in the fields of literature and English, the history of science, medicine and technology, American history, California and Hispanic history, photography, British history and medieval manuscripts, prints and ephemera, early printed books, and has grown a very strong collection in the histories of Southern California and the Pacific Rim. Collection strengths have been drawn on various families' papers and other single items that could be useful to genealogists and family historians tracing ancestral stories. Among the archives are diaries, journals, family letters, legal records, photo albums, and more, traditionally collected for academic interests and first-person accounts of historical events, geographical areas, and daily life. Although the Huntington does not offer a full suite of resources that a genealogy library would, genealogists and family historians directly descended from persons in our collections may find materials of interest. As mentioned earlier, today's presentation from curators Clay Stalls and Li Wei Yang will focus on collections related to Southern California family histories. We will share a link to a family history research guide, which we will be adding to periodically. At the end of the presentations, my colleague Stephanie Arias will cover the process for accessing the library. And if you would like to know more about a specific collection that we're not covering today, please feel free to ask about the end of the presentation. We'll be able to give a brief answer or contact reference at huntington.org. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Let me just get myself together here for a moment. Okay, great. All right, so Anne, thank you very much for that introduction.
You're welcome.
We're going to bring up Li Wei now. One sec. Okay, and I'm going to remove myself, Li Wei, and bring up your presentation.
And does everything look okay, Julie?
Looks perfect, thank you.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday morning with us. Today, I'm here to talk about a very special collection at the Huntington, the Hong family papers. Let's start with the first slide. So a little history about Y.C. Hong. Y.C. Hong was born in San Francisco in 1898. However, recently we discovered some new evidence about his birthplace could potentially be in Daggett in San Bernardino County, but in his official documentation was listed in San Francisco, and there's probably a good reason for that. It's because in 1906, the San Francisco earthquake caused a huge fire that destroyed a lot of these birth certificates and documents about the Chinese population. And so that could be one of the reasons why the discrepancy between his birthplace on his official papers and also but in reality. But we don't really know much about his early life. Y.C. Hong was born to Chinese migrants who came to the United States to work on various low-paying jobs here. And his father passed away when he was a young age. And here you can see Y.C. Hong is sitting on a chair. And so he was actually injured as a child. And so his spinal cord was actually injured as a result. And so you will see in later pictures that he grew to only about 4 feet 6 inches. So he is noticeably shorter than a lot of his fellow friends and family members as well too. So Y.C. Hong was born during a time what we consider the Chinese exclusion era. From 1882 to 1943, the Chinese were forbidden from coming into, most Chinese were forbidden from coming into the United States. They were also forbidden from being naturalized as American citizen. This certificate of residence, for example, belongs to Y.C. Hong's mother. And this is a certificate that was issued to all Chinese residents in the United States who have legal status here. And so this is something that they had to carry all the time, starting in 1892. if they wanted to travel to China to see their families, and if they returned without this particular documentation, they were not allowed to come in. And so the Chinese was actually the first group of people who were forbidden, who were issued this type of identification. This is to track where their legal status, and also as their movements within the United States as well too. And this is also one of the very earliest instances where photo documentation was actually put in practice here in the United States as well too. So in addition to documents, actually, we also have plenty of photographs that was taken of local LA Chinese residents who went to photo studios here in Los Angeles to have these type of identification photos taken in order to make documents like this as well. So Y.C. Hong's early lives was essentially spent in San Francisco, and when he graduated from high school, he went all the way to Boston first in order to take on a job as a bookkeeper at a Chinese restaurant. But eventually he was able to make his way to Los Angeles. And so he was hired initially as a translator for the Immigration Bureau, because at the time there was the Chinese exclusion was in place. And so there was a lot of documentation needs. There was an interview process. There was an interrogation process that was put in place in order to make sure that the Chinese who were coming into this country from China and elsewhere had the proper legal status to be here. And so you have the American interrogators, you have the Chinese immigrants coming in, and you also have Y.C. Hong, who is in the middle, translating everything from both oral and also writing forms to the American interrogators. So this was around he started working as a translator starting in the late 1910s to the early 1920s. And in 1920s, he decided that he wanted to become an immigration lawyer. And so he enrolled in the USC's School of Law and attending night classes while he was working full time. And in 1923, he basically shocked everyone, including his classmates and his professors, by passing the California State Bar. And he became the first Chinese American in the LA area to pass the California State Bar. This was done in 1923. And this was actually quite remarkable because not many Chinese have passed a bar until this time. And then he actually did it before he graduated with his bachelor degree as well too. So he stayed in school and finished his bachelor degree, and also stayed for another year, finished his Master of Law degree at USC, and then eventually began practicing in 1926. He began his legal career here in Los Angeles, Chinatown, and he was able to attract, within the first 3 years, he was able to attract hundreds of Chinese clients to his practices. And the main reason, I think, is that he was able to speak the language of these people. He was able to converse with them in their native languages, and and because of his prior experience as a translator, he knows the entire immigration procedure process, the appeal process, and all the proper documentation. He was very familiar with them. He always did his own work. He never joined any firm because at the time it was very difficult for any Chinese person to join any established big law firms that are here in the Los Angeles area. So within the collection, we have a wealth of genealogical information. Because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, because of how the law works, and because its intention was to keep out as many Chinese as possible from coming into the United States. So the only way for the Chinese to come in was that if a person can claim that they are the wife of a Chinese merchant or Chinese American citizen, or if they were the sons and daughters of a Chinese American citizen. And so these are two of the main ways within how people were able to bypass or circumvent Chinese exclusion as a Chinese person. And so within this collection at the Huntington, we have over 7,600 immigration files that Y.C. Hong had created on behalf of his clients, roughly from the 1920s to the 1970s. And one of the category was the affidavit, such as this one of a Chinese merchant and also his wife as well too. So he was petitioning to bring his Chinese wife from China to the United States to live with him while he's conducting his businesses here. and we also have to, this was a huge topic at the time too, because there was a pretty big gender imbalance within the Chinese community here in the United States at the time. So for example, in the 1920s, for every Chinese woman, there were roughly 10 to 15 other Chinese men. And so the only way for them to form families was to go back to China, get married, and bring their wives and families here. And so this was a very important category, a source of work for Y.C. Hong to practice. As a Chinese merchant, you had to prove that you own a legitimate businesses that was approved by the Immigration Bureau. So this is a shareholder list for a Chinese-owned grocery wholesaler store here in downtown LA. So it lists the number of shareholders, how much money they put in, the address, the name of the company as well too, and the date that where they invested in this company. And this is one of the ways for them to prove that you are a legit merchants here, and you had the right to bring your wives into your families into the United States. Another broad categories for Chinese immigrants are the sons of Chinese Americans, sons and daughters of Chinese American citizens. So if you could prove that you have obtained American citizenship prior to the Exclusion Act, or then you had the right to petition to have your families brought over here. Again, for the same reason that because forming families for Chinese here in this country was not easy given the gender imbalance. And so a lot of them actually had families in China, came to the United States, and then eventually, if they were able to have a successful career or businesses, they want to bring their families over here. So this is a petition by a Chinese American citizen who wanted to bring his son from China into the United States. During the interrogation process, each Chinese immigrants had to go through a very lengthy interrogation. And so this is what we call a coaching paper. And this is essentially a study sheets for individual Chinese immigrants while they were traveling for example, from Hong Kong to Los Angeles or to San Francisco on steamships. And so it takes about 30 to 45 days to travel one way. And so during that time, they were essentially memorizing their family history, because you were required to answer on average 200 to 400 questions about your family history, genealogy, your village layouts, a lot of really commonplace information, very detailed information about your whole background, your history. And you were advised by Y.C. Hong to destroy this particular documents before coming into the United States, because if you were caught by the interrogations, you could be considered cheating and you could be deported. And so it's very valuable every time we find something like this within our collection. And then, in addition to his immigration work, Y.C. Hong was a huge proponent of Chinese American civil rights. Here is a picture of Y.C. Hong, who is in the front, who is also the shortest person in this picture, with the members of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance in San Francisco. And this is before they were heading off to Washington, D.C., to testify on behalf of the Chinese American community to try to advocate for more immigration and civil rights for the Chinese community that are here in the United States. And before I go, I also wanted to mention YC had a huge involvement in the creation of Los Angeles' new Chinatown. And so that is the oldest Chinatown that we have in Los Angeles today, still in existence. And so we have always had a Chinatown here since the 1850s, 1860s. And that Chinatown is known as Old Chinatown, but that was partially demolished starting in the 1930s to make way for Union Station and for other freeway infrastructure. And so in the 1930s, Y.C. Hong and other prominent Chinese businessmen got together and built the first Chinese-designed, Chinese-financed, Chinese-owned Chinatown in the United States. And this is one of the original plans that are in the collection. So thank you so much for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions right after everyone is finished. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Li Wei. That was really interesting. Let me bring up our next presenter. One moment. Hey, Clay, do you want to try to share your presentation?
Sure.
All right, one moment.
How's that?
Beautiful. All
Great.
right, you're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Julie, and thank you for having us today, and thank you for everyone for being here today. It's a pleasure to be here. Anyway, I am curator of California and Hispanic collections here at the Huntington Library, and consequently, one of my responsibilities is the Early California Population Project. I answer reference queries about it, along with Ann and Reader Services, share in some of the management aspects of the Early California Population Project. So in my 10 minutes of fame here today, I'm going to concentrate on the Early California Population Project, which is a database housing almost 200,000, that's right, 200,000 baptismal, marriage, and death records from 1769 to 1850, gleaned from the sacramental records of the Catholic Church of that era in Baja California, and also what is now the U.S. state of California. The project has been in operation at the Huntington since 2006. It was the brainchild of Stephen Hackle of UC Riverside and produced at the Huntington with the support of such persons as Roy Ritchie and Andy Reid. And if I've forgotten anyone, please forgive me. And of course, also with the support of grants. In its own way, this is an historic database. And here I quote from the creators: "No other region of colonial America that has become part of the United States has a database of such an extensive set of vital records." And so it is a very, very important historical database. And when I talk about the database, I should point out, so as not to confuse my audience, that I'll be using the terms Early California Population Project, ECPP, and database interchangeably. My brief talk is broken down into these sections. I'll begin by making some general points about the database, including its history, value, and strengths. Next will be a discussion of the guide to the ECPP and its value. And last, and certainly not least, will be a discussion of searching the database, which can be remarkably fruitful. First, some general points about the database. It is our most heavily used database in the library, a ranking that no doubt comes from the consistent and deep interest that it receives not only from scholars interested in California history before 1850, but also from persons interested in their family history and genealogy from that time and place, California before 1850. I mean, 8,523 views is remarkable. And it just shows the dedicated community and group of people out there who use the ECPP consistently. And of course, as Anne mentioned, the Huntington is known for its collections in English history and literature, British historical manuscripts. And you'll note that the ECPP receives almost over twice the use, or has twice the views, I should say, of the page for British historical manuscripts. So I want to say that no doubt you could probably call the ECPP the premier resource researching family history at the Huntington, although of course it is limited to a very focused time period and geographical area. And along those lines, I want to add that the ECPP is that rare academic research tool that serves not only scholars such as historians, but also serves the general public. Indeed, its creators intended the ECPP to be a genealogical tool as well as a source for academic work. The creators of the ECPP, as I've mentioned, have compiled almost 200,000 entries for baptismal, marriage, and death records from the sacramental registers for both Baja and Alta California before 1850. By sacramental register, I mean the list of sacraments such as baptism and marriages that are performed and recorded at missions. This is the main source then, the sacramental records completed by Franciscans in California, although there are a few other sources as well, to be honest about it. Lynn Turner said in a previous presentation here on Genealogy Garage related to Hispanic genealogy that the sacramental records of the Catholic Church are among the most vital in the world, and there's no argument here on my part, and the ECPP proves this. You can see the breakdown on the screen. I mean, 101,000 baptisms. It's a staggering number. But there's more than a listing of such vital records in the ECPP. I think the great strength of the ECPP is its ability to connect different family records through a database so a family's history and genealogy can be established. And you can see this here in the next slide. This is from the guide to the collection that was prepared by Steve Hackle and Andy Reid. 91% of approximately 71,000 death records are linked to the dead person's baptismal record. 72% of some 65,000 baptisms with a Spanish name mother are linked to the mother's baptismal record. 65% of the approximately 65,000 baptism records with a Spanish name father are linked to the father's baptismal record. And 90% and 89% of the marriage records are linked to the bride's baptism and the groom's baptism record. So these records in the ECPP were meant to be electronic versions of the records of the sacramental registers, whether baptismal, marriage, or death. And the ECPP creators relied on the records of sacramental registers found in repositories throughout the state, including the Huntington, the Santa Barbara Mission Archive and Library, Santa Clara University, and some diocesan archives, especially in Northern California. And this genealogical and biographical information in the database, and this is an important point, falls squarely within California indigenous history, provides a major research tool for understanding Native American history and genealogy and populations of California before 1850 through its centralized demographical and biographical information. It also, of course, yields similarly valuable information for persons of Hispanic heritage and Europeans, of course, also, as well as Anglo-American immigrants in Alta California before 1850. For example, if you're interested in persons who came to California from Protestant Scotland, you can search on them in the ECPP by choosing baptismal records and then a field called Ago's origin. Here you can see you find 7 records pop up on the screen there. And all this information is possible because the sacramental obligations of the Roman Catholic Church deeply ordered life, and persons had to participate in these rituals to participate fully in California's civic life. That's why somebody from Scotland, if we're to own property, become a citizen of Mexico, had to become a member of the church and be baptized. So now let me briefly discuss the user's guide. We do have a page on our website, our LibGuide for the Early California Population Project that provides search tips, as you can see here on the screen. But also, I think the best way to understand the genius of the ECPP and how it works is the user's guide to the ECPP, which is found on the Huntington website for the ECPP. It's a downloadable PDF. Here it is on the screen, or at least the title page. And it's pretty darn long. It's 106 pages. It makes for extensive reading, but really this is the key for navigating the many fields of the ECPP and the codes that are often used in the ECPP database for searching. Just look at it as sort of light bedtime reading, download it on your mobile device and read it at night before you go to bed. At any rate, the guide contains very important information about the quality of the records for each mission in the database, describing the records and noting any problems associated with these records. For example, the sacramental records of Mission San Luis Rey are lost, and genealogical information had to be reconstructed from census records there at the mission. Also, the sacramental records for the Mission Soledad are also gone, so there's nothing there in the ECPP concerning the Mission Soledad. And also you'll find basic, and here's sort of a search tip, so very necessary facts that the actual numbers assigned to a person being baptized, for example, in a baptismal register are recorded in the database, which is key for searching records. If you have an original baptismal number from the original baptismal register, then you can go straight to the person's record. And in general, priests or the recorder try to enter in various records, whether baptismal, death, or marriage records, place of birth, parents, other relatives, marriage, children, godparents, Spanish name, any other information they deemed unique or relevant. And all this is found in the ECPP. Also in the user's guide, you'll find the list of abbreviations of mission names that are used in the database, which is also critical. So now let's try to discuss how to search the database. Again, the key here is to use the guide, which I've just discussed, read it and memorize it. The sections on searching are quite detailed. And here's some basic general points about searching the ECPP. And these are based on the numerous queries that I receive about the ECPP, and these are some of the most common queries. Number one, remember that the dates of the ECPP are from 1769 to 1850. If you find the baptismal record of a person for the year 1835, for example, and this person has a death date of post-1850, this person's death record will not be in the ECPP database. Also, there's irregular orthography. Avila can be spelled as the last name. Avila can be spelled as Avila. Spanish and Latin phrases are not translated. Boolean operators can be used in searching. And I say this much to my chagrin. The advanced search function does not work, but that's just the way it goes. So now let's turn to types of records and search fields. When searching within the records in the ECPP, you will see what I think is the genius of the design of the Early California Population Project. This genius is its numerous entry points found in different search fields to examine the genealogical information that is found in the sacramental registers from California. And the point of all these fields is to provide the means to link records so that a person's genealogy and family history can be traced. The database has 6 different record types. They are highlighted here on this slide. There's a drop-down menu. The most important of these, I think, probably are baptismal, marriage, and death, but also there are other record types: godparent, witness, and relative. And in the database, you'll find these record types here on the home search page, mission.huntington.org/simplequery.aspx, and please select record type. And within these types of records, there are numerous searchable fields, which are called criterion and are found in a drop-down list. You can see this on the screen. Note also that the term ego refers to the person who is the main subject of the search, for example, someone being baptized. And also for the baptismal and death records, there exist over 40 different searchable fields. And for marriage records, there are more than 80 different searchable fields. That's just a staggering number. There are just way too many fields to describe here, but they do provide for extensive searches, which again allows for determining a person's family and genealogy. These fields include those found in both the original sacramental records as well as what the creators of the ECPP call derived fields. So when you call up a record from a search, you're going to get records from not only the original sacramental record, but also other fields that the ECPP creators added, such as a notes or comments field. Also, if you found the name of a person you are interested in the record of a search, there will be other genealogical information. The names of the individual's mother and father, if available, will be provided along with their dates. The names of godparents in the ceremony that are found in the record for a search on a particular person are linked to the records of the godparents as well. So again, it's very, very extensive. And here's one search that I performed. I just chose Juan Bautista Alvarado, who was governor of California from 1837 to 1842. We have some of his records here at the Huntington Library, so I chose him. And here are my search terms. I cheated a little bit. I knew the mission which he was born at, which is San Carlos Borromeo. And you can see under the criterion, the search field for baptismal mission, I entered SC, which is the abbreviation for San Carlos Borromeo. And here are the results. You'll note on the screen number. That's very important. That's the baptismal number. And that's critical for searching on these people. So let's go to the actual results page. And here's part of it. You'll see this is the results page for the search baptismal record for Juan Bautista Alvarado. You'll see that there's information on his father, where his father came from. There's information on his mother, and she was also baptized at the Mission San Carlos Borromeo, and there's her baptismal number. There's other information as well. One bit of information I found particularly interesting, and here's the full phrase. He was bautizado in periculo mortis. There's an interesting combination of Latin and Spanish. Juan Bautista Alvarado was baptized in danger of death, which means he was given a provisional baptism by someone, a woman named Maria Cota. And then his supla ceremonia, which is his full official church baptism, was given on the 15th of February, 1809. And here's the rest of the record. You can see at the bottom of the page, the godparents' data. Maria de Los Angeles Cota, who's his godparent for this ceremony, and that's because she was also the officiant officiant at the provisional baptism. And then the official church baptism was done by Francisco Suñer, who was a very important Franciscan priest in the missions here in California. And then you can also, of course, click on the link to the godparents data, and here's the kind of record that you'll come up with. Here's the information that they have on Maria de los Angeles Cota, and this is the link from Juan Bautista Alvarado's baptismal record to his godparents' information. And there are other ways to play around with the database as well. For example, I was interested in how many baptisms the very famous Junipero Serra performed. Father Junipero Serra, the founder of the California Missions in Alta California. And you can see that he performed some 577 baptisms. So this is how a basic look at the ECPP, but I also want to quote now from persons who regularly use the ECPP and what they have to say about the ECPP. So these are persons who come and use the ECPP frequently, and this is what they have to say about the usefulness of this database. And this is a quotation now from one person. While researching my own 22 direct ancestors who arrived in 1776 with Juan Bautista de Anza, the 7 more who came in 1781 with Rivera, I've used the ECPP almost daily at times. Verifying families is made easier with the information included with godparents. Being able to search for officiants and recorders has allowed me to find a record when I didn't know the actual names and or dates. And the notes section often includes tidbits of info not found elsewhere. And here's a quotation from another person. The ECPP is an extremely valuable tool for researchers, and the fact that it is remotely available 24/7 with excellent uptime adds to that value. The contents seem extremely accurate. The contents show what was actually recorded in the mission registers. Any corrections or explanatory notes to what the padres actually recorded are clearly distinguished in the contents. This is in contrast to so many other scholarly sources where it is not possible to tell what information was added by the author and what basis they justified those additions. And I think this just shows the care that was put into the creation of the ECPP. While many, and again, let me continue the quotation, while many people use it in a more straightforward way to find information on the baptism, marriages, and burial of their ancestors and relatives, the same contents through the same user interface allow for other types of queries. One example is searching for all occurrences of someone as a godparent or witness, allowing you to see where someone was geographically located at different times during the mission period. Similarly, you can see how someone's military rank or assignment changed over time. A different example is tracing the movement of the padres to identify which missions they were assigned to or visited and when. Again, this just points out, and I'm adding parenthetically here, how useful the ECPP is for different types of information. And in conclusion, this person says, this regular user of the ECPP says, as with any powerful tool, there are some areas in the user interface and data contents that could be enhanced, but given the wealth of data in ECPP today and the flexibility already available in the user interface, not to mention that there's no charge to the researcher for its use, the ECPP is without a doubt a must use for anyone doing Alta California genealogical research. So along those lines, here's a resource page for research into pre-1850 California genealogical history. It's from the organization called Los Californianos, which is made up of persons whose ancestry dates to pre-1850 California. And it's a very useful genealogical research page. I also should point out that here at the Huntington, we have extensive records of the Mexican Inquisition, and they have been used by persons attempting to establish their Jewish ancestry. Not frequently, but they have been used occasionally. You can see here on the screen, this is a Mexican Inquisition record entitled Información de la Limpieza del Dr. Santiago de Vera, and this is a report on the purity of Dr. Santiago de Vera. And by purity here, it means whether or not this person in question had Jewish or Muslim ancestry. And then finally, if you're interested in any kind of research into colonial North American genealogy, there is this important site here in Canada, which covers at least early French Catholic baptisms and burials, as well as Quebec's marriages from 1621 to 1849. And this is probably the only really other major genealogical research tool that concentrates just on colonial North America that I know of. There may be others. I think there's a project now at the University of Southern Florida that's putting up sacramental records as well related to early Spanish Florida. At any rate, that's about it. Thank you for your time. And
yes, thank you. I don't know why I was so big all of a sudden, but thanks so much, Clay. That was really interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, and I'm going to be a hog and ask a question before everybody else can.
Sure.
But where again are the original mission records that the ECPP database derives its data?
Well, actually, to be honest with you, we derived most of or I shouldn't say we, I wasn't part of the original project, but most of the records were derived from microfilm copies at the Huntington, for example. For example, almost all of our sacramental registers here at the Huntington are microfilm. We also went to, or the creators, I should say, went to the Santa Barbara Mission Archive and Library, and their sacramental registers on microfilm, and then also some diocesan archives in Northern California as well. And then the microfilm records here at the Huntington Library, the Los Angeles Plaza Church, were also used. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and now I'm going to bring up Stephanie. One moment. All right, Stephanie, I'm going to bring up your presentation and get myself out of the picture. One moment.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Okay. Hi, everyone, and thanks again for being here with us on Saturday morning. We're very excited to share information about accessing all of these wonderful collections. And so as you saw with Leeway and Clay, they gave you just a sample of what the library has to offer. So I'll go into detail about how to get access to collections. But I'd first like to preface this portion of my presentation by saying that we understand that navigating the library web pages can be a little bit challenging, but Reader Services, the department Ann and I work for, we're here to help you every step of the way. All right. So the Reader Services department will be your first point of contact for new library users and returning users. So our department is responsible for welcoming new researchers. We manage the circulation of collections to the library's reading rooms. We handle imaging requests and incoming reference questions. So if you have a question, you can start by getting in touch with the library. And if Reader Services cannot answer your questions, we'll direct you to a subject expert like Leeway or Clay. I'll share a slide at the end here with our contact information. It's reference at huntington.org is our direct email address, but we also have a web page that you can search for some answers too. So where to get started? We'd suggest start with our library homepage. So if you want to do some self-guided exploration about the library, you can visit huntington.org. This is our institution's homepage, and since the Huntington is sort of a very special place, we are a division of library, art museum, and botanical gardens. Our direct link is huntington.org/library. There you'll find information about what types of materials and collections the Huntington has traditionally collected. Details about accessing the library are found on our Using the Library page. We listed our current access requirements along with details on how to get in touch with us and use our remote services. You'll also find helpful information on the latest library news, details on the latest acquisitions, upcoming lectures, blogs written by staff about collections, and much, much more. So we definitely recommend checking out our website. So how do you actually start your research? Okay. So we do recommend you try Summon Discovery. So this is our search system. So before researchers book an appointment, we'd ask you to identify collections of interests that are related to your own research. Summon Discovery works like a search engine, and it allows you to search seamlessly across the library's resources, including the library catalog, the Huntington Digital Library, and finding aids. So Summon search boxes are available on several of our library pages, so you can get started even by visiting huntington.org/using the library. Researchers may also search the library catalog and Huntington Digital Library individually if they prefer. So the Huntington's finding aids are available on the Online Archive of California, but as always, we'd recommend just getting in touch with us in case you're not finding what you need. All right. So here's a little library checklist. So these are the things that we ask everyone to please do before they get here. So once you've identified collections relevant to your research, you can take these steps before scheduling an appointment. You'll first need to create an account in Aon, which is our library's registration system. You'll also need an Aon account to request rare materials or have materials brought to the reading room during your appointment. So if you're new to Aon, here's a helpful link on how to use the system. We've included some tips there. Then we'd also ask researchers to please review our reading room policies and our conditions and terms related to getting your library card. And then the very last thing to do would be just to book the appointment. So we do have an online calendar available to the public. It's linked here under schedule an appointment. And then just a little bit more information on our appointment time and availability. So appointments are available Monday through Friday and Saturday mornings. So our business hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Monday through Friday, except for Saturday, we do close at noon. But we do welcome new researchers during those business hours. So we are closed Sundays, major holidays, and during planned closures, which we do announce on our library calendar site. And so when you visit our library calendar and you decide to use our special collections, be sure to book a seat in the Amundsen reading room. An important note here is that access to the library is free. So you'll find out that the Huntington is on a very large property, and we're inside the Munger Research Center. So we're just outside the admissions area, which is in our what we call the free zone here. So no need to buy a ticket to the gardens or to the art museum to access the library. And so the last thing to note is that when you come, your first visit to the library will include an orientation with reader services. So the orientation is required, but it is an opportunity for us to meet you, get to answer any of your questions. We go over the process of getting around the library, talk about any questions you might have. So feel free to come with questions during your orientation. All right. And then let's see here. I went back the wrong way. There we go. So when you do come for your orientation on your first visit, don't forget we'll need a current government issued ID to register you and issue your library card. And so we accept a driver's license if you have a state ID or your passport. Proof of vaccination is required at this time, so be sure to bring your proof of up-to-date vaccination, and that per LA County guidelines, that means that you have your booster shots. And be sure to bring your email. So Reader Services will send you confirmation when your appointment is booked and scheduled. So be sure to have that in your inbox, either on your phone, or you can bring a printout if you'd like of that confirmation email, because we'll need that to check you into the library. All right, so that's my portion of the presentation. We do look forward to welcoming you. Here's some links to our Ask a Librarian page, which will provide FAQs on scheduling an appointment. We have even some collection FAQs, but that Ask a Librarian page will also allow you to send us your questions. You can get in touch with us via email at reference@huntington.org, and give us a phone call if you're having any trouble, especially if you're struggling with the web pages. We'd be happy to walk you through those processes. Our phone number is there, 626-405-2191. So thanks very much. I'll turn it back over to Julie.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. That was wonderful. And I just want to reiterate, let me bring everybody up. If you are kicking around and you're looking for something to do, not only is the Huntington an amazing library and resource for your genealogical research, but it happens to be like one of the most beautiful places in Southern California as far as grounds and the garden. And I think in 2023 is your tea room opening back up?
Sometime around Valentine's Day, allegedly. So,
okay.
Yeah.
It's a perfect place to take your mom. I know, because I've done that. So we did have a couple of questions that some of them we answered in the chat box, but I thought I might bring them up just so we could maybe address them for everybody to hear. And this was the first one, and Anne provided a couple links to show that ephemera is also part of the picture. But RDCL Theory wonders, does the Huntington Library collect only documents and photos or also ephemera? And was the answer, Anne, that you do have ephemera?
We do have a very large prints, posters, and ephemera collection. The collections page and the LibGuide gives some high-level information about that collection. That collection has a very large collection called the JT Last collection. Quite a bit of JT Last is also available in the digital library. And it's if you put JT Last into our catalog, you'll see quite a bit of collection material for that collection. Ephemera lives in many collections. I would say probably all the collecting areas. And Lee Wei and Clay, feel free to chime in and add to my answer if you'd like to. So it has traditionally been a pretty a collecting focus of the Huntington. So Clay or Lee Wei would like to add more.
Sure. Yes, so I agree with everything Anne just said. So ephemera lives everywhere. And for example, in my collection, you will find Japanese American or Chinese American directories from the early 20th century, which is really useful for people, for scholars to go in and look for information on a particular businesses or neighborhood or individuals as well.
Okay, great. Francesca asks, and this may have been answered by you, Clay, in your part, but does the Huntington have post-1850 California vital records in its collection?
Yes, our Sacramento records from the missions on microfilm here extend past 1850. And we have not every mission in California, but most of the missions here in California.
All right. And then Tony is wondering if there are resources you can use to search information outside of California that might spring to mind.
Well, does it mean colonial America, early America? I'm not sure.
Maybe he might be just wondering, is the Huntington California primarily, or do you have, what kind of worldwide or nationwide records or record sets might you have?
Well, we never really started out as a repository for genealogical research, but because we acquired throughout the United States, acquired collections throughout the United States, extending extensively to really back to colonial America, our various family collections from these different eras could be used for genealogical research. Yeah.
And some of those may exist, like maybe we don't have many original records, but certainly there are a lot of published records that you can find by conducting a subject search for registers of birth, marriage records, marriage licenses, and things like that. You may find some published records and directories related to other states or other countries, especially the UK.
I guess kind of the moral of the story is the first step would be roll up your sleeves and really go through your online catalog and take a look at what collections you have and figure out what you need to.
And a lot of those directories for births and marriages, especially those from before 1923, might already be digitized in some of the big digital libraries like the Hathi Trust. So always send us a question and we're happy to do that research for you and send you a link to the digitized item, which is often easier to use because it's word searchable, whereas coming in and seeing a physical item and searching yourself is a lot more challenging. So, but we're happy to answer those questions. We answer questions like that all the time. So feel free to, if you have a question about something in the catalog, go ahead and send it to us. And there may be, especially for items before 1923, an already digitized version out there in the larger library universe.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions right now because I think our viewers are probably overwhelmed with the quantity of wonderful information you've provided today. And I'd like to poll the attendees today if there is a specific aspect of one of the data sets or items that our speakers talked about that you'd like to see maybe an entire genealogy garage devote itself to, like the ECPP, for instance, or any of the other collections that were talked about. Send me an email, and then we can maybe set something up for next year. But I want to thank you. Let me just see if do you have any other comments you want to mention while I've got you on the screen?
Well, people should feel free to contact me. My email is cstalls@huntington.org if they have any questions about the ECPP or any of our early California records. And if I can help them in any way, feel free to contact me.
And here's Clay's info. Because that resource, the ECPP, is something you definitely want to throw yourself into. And I've used it, Clay. I found it to be a hair difficult, like not maybe as intuitive as some of the databases I'm used to. So you just have to be patient and spend some time with it. But my goodness, it's a rich resource, that's for sure.
It's amazing the kind of work you can do with it.
Okay, gang. Well, I want to just really thank you, and I appreciate you, and I for spending your Saturday with us. And I hope we've piqued some interest of people out there. Please email me if there's more you want to hear. And but thanks everybody for spending your time with us. And we see a comment here from Chris, and so you're very appreciated.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
I'm hoping that we'll see you soon.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.